The champagne glass slipped from Emma Cartwright's trembling fingers, crystal shards scattering across the cold marble floor, like her shattered dreams. Through the crack in Ryan's office door, she watched her husband of 3 years press his secretary against the mahogany desk, his wedding ring glinting as his hands tangled in blonde hair that wasn't hers. Ryan's finally going to leave that pathetic wife of his, the woman panted between hungry kisses. After tonight's charity gala, he'll file for divorce, and we can be together openly. Emma's hand flew instinctively to her still flat stomach, where 4 precious lives grew, quadruplets she'd planned to announce tonight on their anniversary. The ultrasound photos from her 12-week appointment crumpled in her grip as she watched the man she'd loved since college destroy everything they'd built together with casual cruelty. Emma, such a naive fool. Ryan's voice cut through her heart like a serrated blade. She actually believes I love her. The only reason I married her was for her family's connections to the Cartwright Foundation. But now that I have what I need from her bloodline, she's become completely expendable. The secretary's laugh was sharp, vindictive. What about the pregnancy rumors? Several people mentioned she's been looking different lately. Ryan's response froze Emma's blood in her veins. If she is pregnant, it's not my problem. I never wanted children with her anyway. She can deal with whatever consequences come from her delusions of grandeur. Emma stumbled backward, her heart thundering so violently she was certain they'd hear it. 6 years of marriage, 3 years of loving him with every fiber of her being, and this was how utterly worthless she was to him. She pressed her lips together to stifle the sob threatening to escape, refusing to give him the satisfaction of her tears. But it was more than betrayal coursing through her veins now. It was revelation. Every late-night business meeting, every unexplained absence, every time he'd made her feel like she was imagining things that had all been real. She'd been living a lie, so complete it took her breath away. The charity gala that evening was supposed to be their moment of triumph. Emma had spent months organizing the event for the Children's Cancer Foundation, pouring her heart and considerable skills into every detail. She'd chosen her dress carefully, a flowing emerald silk gown that concealed her early pregnancy, while making her dark skin glow like burnished bronze under the chandeliers. But as she stood at the podium, looking out at the sea of wealthy faces, all she could think about was Ryan's betrayal. Her speech about hope and resilience felt hollow in her mouth, even as the audience applauded with genuine enthusiasm for her words. "You're absolutely radiant tonight, darling," Ryan murmured in her ear as she stepped down from the podium, his hand possessively gripping her waist, the same hand that had touched another woman just hours earlier. "I have something important to tell you," Emma whispered, her voice steady despite the earthquake in her chest. "Something that will change everything between us." Ryan's eyes flickered with barely concealed impatience. "Can't it wait? I have crucial business to discuss with the Morrison board members." "No," Emma said with surprising firmness, startling herself with her own backbone. "This absolutely cannot wait." She led him to the private balcony overlooking the glittering city lights, the ultrasound photos burning like coals in her clutch. This was supposed to be the happiest moment of their marriage. The moment she told him about their miracle babies growing inside her. "Ryan," she began, her voice trembling with a mixture of love and growing dread. "I'm pregnant." The silence that followed was deafening, punctuated only by the distant sounds of the party continuing inside. Ryan's face went through a kaleidoscope of expressions: shock, disbelief, calculation, and finally, undisguised disgust. "You're what?" he hissed, glancing around frantically, to ensure no one could hear them. "Pregnant," Emma repeated, her hand moving protectively to her stomach. "With quadruplets, Ryan. 4 babies. Our babies." Ryan's face turned the color of old parchment. "No, absolutely not. This cannot be happening now. Not when everything is finally falling perfectly into place for me." "What do you mean?" Emma asked, though the cold dread in her stomach already knew the answer. "I mean, I don't want children with you," Ryan exploded, his voice rising dangerously above an acceptable whisper. "I never wanted children with you. This destroys everything I've worked for." Emma felt something fundamental inside her soul die a violent death. "These are your children, Ryan." "Our children." "No," he snarled, grabbing her roughly by the shoulders hard enough to leave bruises. "These are your children. Your problem. Your mistake. I want absolutely nothing to do with them, or you. Consider this marriage officially over." Emma stared at him, seeing him with crystal clarity for the first time in their entire relationship. "You're completely serious?" "Dead serious," Ryan confirmed with chilling finality. "I'll have the divorce papers drawn up first thing tomorrow morning. You can keep whatever's in your personal accounts, but everything else stays with me. And Emma," his smile was vicious, predatory, "if you try to claim any of my assets or drag my reputation through the mud, I'll make sure you never work anywhere in this city again." The sound of laughter and applause from inside the ballroom felt like cruel mockery. Emma straightened her shoulders, drawing on a reservoir of strength she didn't even know she possessed. "You think this is over?" she asked quietly, her voice steady as forged steel. "You think you can just discard me like yesterday's newspaper? What exactly are you going to do about it?" Ryan sneered with obvious contempt. "You're nothing without me, Emma. You have no money, no real connections, no power of your own. You're just a pretty face I picked up in college because you looked good on my arm." Emma looked at him for a long, measuring moment, memorizing every detail of his cruel, arrogant face. "You're right about one thing, Ryan. This marriage is absolutely over, but you're catastrophically wrong about everything else." She pulled the ultrasound photos from her clutch and held them up like a shield. "These babies, they're going to be extraordinary human beings. And they're going to know exactly what kind of pathetic excuse for a man their biological father really is." Ryan's face twisted with murderous rage. "Are you threatening me?" "I'm not threatening you," Emma said, her voice growing stronger and more powerful with each carefully chosen word. "I'm making you a solemn promise. You threw away a diamond, thinking it was worthless glass. When I return, it will be as the queen you never deserved and could never appreciate." She turned to leave with dignity intact. But Ryan grabbed her arm with bruising force. "You're nothing, Emma. Nothing. You'll be broken and desperate within 6 months, begging me to take you back." Emma looked down at his hand on her arm, then back at his face with ice-cold contempt. "Release me immediately." "Or what exactly?" "Or I'll scream loud enough for everyone inside to come running to see what's wrong. Do you really want to explain to your precious business partners why you're manhandling your pregnant wife in public?" Ryan released her immediately, his face pale with sudden panic. Emma smoothed her gown with deliberate care and lifted her chin with regal bearing. "Goodbye, Ryan. The next time you see me, you won't recognize the woman standing before you. That's not a threat. It's a guarantee." She walked away without looking back, her head held high despite the tears streaming down her face in silent rivers. Behind her, she heard Ryan's voice calling after her, but she didn't acknowledge him with so much as a glance. In the limousine ride home, Emma placed both hands protectively on her stomach and whispered to her unborn children, "I'm not broken, my darlings. Mommy is rebuilding herself into something he'll never be able to destroy again. Something magnificent." The next morning, Emma woke to find Ryan already gone, his belongings cleared out, except for a single sheet of legal paper on the kitchen counter. Divorce papers, already signed on his end, with a note, "Sign these and disappear quietly. It's better for everyone involved." Emma stared at the papers for a long, contemplative moment, then picked up her fountain pen. But instead of signing, she wrote across the bottom in bold, decisive strokes, "I'll sign when I'm ready, and I'll never be ready to make things easy for you again." She had no idea that signing those papers would be the last easy thing Ryan would ever ask of her. What she also didn't know was that someone had been watching Ryan's unethical business practices for months. Federal investigators who would soon turn their attention to his company's financial irregularities. The real battle was just beginning, and Emma Cartwright was about to discover just how devastatingly powerful a woman could become when she had nothing left to lose and everything to fight for. The queen was about to be born from the ashes of the discarded wife, and her reign would be legendary. Chapter 2. The Mysterious Savior. 6 months later, Emma Cartwright stood in the relentless downpour outside the women's shelter. 4 newborn babies pressed against her chest in a makeshift carrier fashioned from her last decent sweater. The shelter director had explained with genuinely apologetic eyes that they were at maximum capacity, with a waiting list stretching 2 weeks into an uncertain future. "I'm truly sorry, Miss Cartwright," the woman had said. unable to meet Emma's desperate gaze. With quadruplets, you need specialized resources and round-the-clock support that we simply don't have available right now. Emma's carefully hoarded savings had evaporated 3 weeks ago. Every penny spent on formula, diapers, and the cheapest motel room she could find, until even that became unaffordable. Ryan had been methodically true to his vindictive word, systematically destroying her reputation and ensuring she couldn't secure employment anywhere in the city. Every job interview followed the same soul-crushing pattern. Initial enthusiasm followed by sudden, inexplicable rejection once they verified her identity. His influence ran deeper and darker than she'd ever imagined possible. The baby stirred restlessly against her chest, and Emma felt her knees buckle from exhaustion and malnutrition. She'd been surviving on crackers and tap water for 48 hours, desperately trying to maintain enough breast milk to keep them fed. But her body was failing catastrophically, and she was terrified of what would happen if she collapsed here in this alley, with no one to protect them. "Please," she whispered to the rain, to God, to the indifferent universe. "I need help. Not for me, for them." That's when she saw him emerge from the shadows. A man stepped out of the darkness across the street, tall and imposing, with shoulders that seemed to cut through the storm itself, like he commanded the very elements. He was dressed in an expensive charcoal suit that somehow managed to look immaculate despite the torrential downpour. And when his dark eyes found hers across the distance, Emma felt something electric and inexplicable pass between them. "Miss Emma Cartwright." His voice was deep, smooth as aged whiskey, with an accent that spoke of education and power. "I'm David Montgomery." Emma clutched the babies tighter against her body, every survival instinct screaming danger at this perfect stranger appearing from nowhere. "I don't know you." "No," he agreed, stepping closer with measured, non-threatening movements. "But I know you. I've been following your situation, and I know you desperately need help right now." "I don't need," Emma began automatically, but her words were cut off as her legs gave out completely. She fell to her knees on the wet pavement, the babies crying in perfect harmony as cold rain soaked through their thin blankets. David moved faster than she thought humanly possible, his strong arms catching her before she could hit the unforgiving concrete. "Easy now," he murmured, his voice surprisingly gentle despite his intimidating presence. "I've got you. You're safe." "The babies," Emma gasped, trying to push him away, even as her body betrayed her complete weakness. "Don't hurt them, please." "I would never hurt them," David said, and something in his tone made her believe him against all logic. "When's the last time you had a proper meal?" Emma's pride warred desperately with her crushing need. "I don't accept charity from strangers." "Good," David said, carefully helping her to her feet, "because I'm not offering charity. I'm offering a business partnership." He gestured toward a sleek black luxury car waiting at the curb, engine running, and interior glowing with warm, inviting light. "Let me make you a proposition, Emma Cartwright. You need shelter, food, medical care, and safety for your children. I need someone with your exceptional skills and strategic mind to help me build something revolutionary." "What kind of business venture?" Emma asked suspiciously, even as she shivered uncontrollably in the cold rain. "The kind that will make you wealthy enough to fight back against Ryan Fletcher," David said with quiet, devastating simplicity. Emma's breath caught in her throat. "How do you know about Ryan?" "I know many things," David said, opening the car door to reveal heated leather seats and the promise of warmth. "I know you graduated summa cum laude from Harvard Business School. I know you built the Cartwright Foundation into a major charity from nothing, and I know Ryan has been blacklisting you from every job in the city." Against her better judgment, Emma allowed him to help her into the car. The interior was luxurious beyond anything she'd ever experienced. With heated seats and soft music playing from hidden speakers, David settled into the seat across from her, his presence both comforting and overwhelming. "Theodore, Sebastian, Isabella, and Victoria," he said softly, looking at the babies with something that resembled wonder. "Beautiful names for beautiful children who deserve everything the world has to offer." Emma's eyes widened in genuine alarm. "How could you possibly know their names?" "I've been following your story," David said, his voice infinitely gentle. "I know Ryan threw you out when you were pregnant. I know you've been struggling to survive alone, and I've been waiting for the right moment to offer my help." The car pulled up to a mansion that literally took Emma's breath away. It was elegant and imposing, with manicured gardens that looked like something from an enchanted fairy tale, even in the driving rain. "This is your house?" Emma asked, completely overwhelmed by the scope of wealth displayed before her. "It's going to be our house," David corrected with quiet confidence. "If you agree to accept my proposition." He helped her from the car, his hands lingering on her waist a moment longer than strictly necessary. "I'm launching a technology company, Communication Innovations, that will change how people connect globally. I need someone with your exceptional skills to help me build it from the ground up." They entered the mansion, and Emma actually gasped aloud. The interior was warm and inviting despite its obvious grandeur, with a fully equipped nursery that looked like it had been designed by guardian angels themselves. 4 cribs sat in a perfect circle, each one outfitted with everything newborn babies could possibly need. "How is this possible?" Emma whispered, her voice breaking with overwhelming emotion. "I had it prepared when I heard about your situation," David said matter-of-factly. "I've been planning this for weeks." Emma whirled to face him, her eyes blazing with sudden, furious understanding. You knew Ryan was going to abandon me, and you just waited like some kind of predator." "No," David said firmly, his voice hardening with genuine emotion. "I watched you suffer in that toxic marriage, and it affected me more than I expected. When I heard about the divorce and your situation, I knew I had to help. So, you just watched from the shadows," Emma said bitterly. "I watched, and I planned, and I built this opportunity." David admitted without shame. "I'm worth about $8 billion, Emma. I built my fortune in tech investments, and I want to share that knowledge with someone who deserves it." Emma looked around the perfect nursery at the 4 babies who were already settling into their new cribs, as if they instinctively belonged there. "And what exactly do you get out of this arrangement?" David moved closer, his presence overwhelming in the most intoxicating way. "I get to work with one of the most brilliant strategic minds I've ever encountered. I get to help 4 innocent children have the life they deserve. And maybe, if I'm extraordinarily lucky, I get to earn your trust and respect." Emma's heart hammered against her ribs like a caged bird. "I don't need a savior, David. I need a genuine partner, or absolutely nothing at all." "Perfect," David said, his smile absolutely devastating. "Because I'm not here to save you, Emma. I'm here to help you build something that will make Ryan Fletcher regret every cruel word he ever said to you." He reached into his jacket and produced an official-looking contract, 5,050 partnership in Montgomery Innovations. Your name on everything. Your voice in every decision. Your vision driving every innovation. We build a company together as equals, and when it's successful, you'll have the power to face Ryan on your own terms. Emma read through the contract with her trained business mind, analyzing every clause with razor-sharp focus. It was more than fair. It was generous to the point of seeming too good to be true. "Why would you do this?" she asked finally. "What could you possibly gain?" David's eyes met hers, and she saw something there that made her breath catch in her throat. "Because I believe in justice. I believe in giving brilliant people the chance they deserve. And I believe that sometimes the best business partnerships start with helping someone who's been wronged." Emma looked at her sleeping babies, then back at the man who was offering her everything she'd ever dreamed of having. "This is absolutely insane." "The best opportunities usually are," David said softly. Emma picked up the pen, her hand trembling with infinite possibility. "If I sign this, everything changes forever." "Everything," David agreed solemnly. "Starting with the fact that Ryan Fletcher is about to learn exactly what happens when you foolishly underestimate a woman with nothing left to lose and everything to fight for." Emma signed her name with a flourish, sealing both their fates. "Let's build an empire, David Montgomery. Let's build something that will last forever," he corrected. And when he smiled, Emma felt something she hadn't experienced in months. Genuine hope for the future. Chapter 3. Secrets and Seduction. 4 months into their partnership, Emma stood in David's home office at midnight, her silk robe clinging to her curves as she reviewed the financial projections that exceeded every expectation. Montgomery Innovations was attracting major investors faster than they dared to hope, and Emma's strategic mind had proven invaluable in negotiations that were making them both wealthy beyond their wildest dreams. The quadruplets were thriving under David's devoted care, calling him Papa David with such natural affection that it made Emma's heart ache with complicated emotions she wasn't ready to examine. "You should be sleeping." David's voice came from the doorway, deep and rich like aged wine, sending involuntary shivers down her spine. She turned to find him leaning against the frame, his white dress shirt unbuttoned at the collar, revealing a tantalizing glimpse of the muscled chest she'd been trying desperately not to think about. "So should you," Emma replied, her voice huskier than intended. "But here we both are, apparently." David stepped into the room, closing the door behind him with deliberate care. The air between them crackled with sexual tension that had been building for weeks, threatening to combust at any moment. "Emma, we need to talk about what's happening between us." "Nothing's happening between us," she said, though they both knew exactly what he meant. "Isn't it?" David said, moving closer with predatory grace. "The way you watch me when you think I'm not looking. The way you find excuses to brush against me when we're working. The way you say my name like it means something special when you're talking to the babies." Emma's cheeks burned with embarrassment and desire. "I don't." "You do," David said softly, his hand coming up to cup her face with devastating tenderness. "And I've been doing the same thing. Watching you, wanting you, falling for you a little more each day until I can barely concentrate on anything else." "Don't," Emma whispered. But she didn't pull away from his touch. "Don't what?" "Don't tell you that I've been completely captivated by you since the night I found you in that storm?" David's thumb traced her cheekbone with reverent care. "Don't tell you that watching you with our children makes me want things I never thought I'd want?" Emma's eyes widened in surprise. "Our children? That's how I think of them," David admitted. "Theodore, Sebastian, Isabella, and Victoria. They're not just your children anymore, Emma. They're ours. We're raising them together, loving them together, building a family together." "That's not what this arrangement is," Emma protested weakly. "Isn't it?" David challenged. "Then why do I feel like the luckiest man alive when Isabella runs to me with a scraped knee? Why does my heart nearly stop when Theodore calls me Papa? Why does everything I've built seem meaningless compared to making you smile?" Emma stared at him, seeing him clearly for the first time. "David, I need you to know something," she said, stepping back to give herself space to breathe. "Something I should have told you from the beginning." "What?" Emma asked, though part of her was afraid to hear the answer. "I'm not just David Montgomery, tech investor," he said, his voice steady and sure. "I'm David Montgomery, founder and CEO of 6 different companies. My net worth is closer to 12 billion, not 8. Emma felt the blood drain from her face. "You lied to me." "I simplified the truth," David corrected. "I wanted you to trust me for who I am, not what I have. I've seen too many relationships poisoned by money." "You've been hiding your true identity," Emma said, anger flashing in her dark eyes like lightning. "I've been protecting both of us," David countered. "If you'd known the full extent of my wealth from the beginning, you would have assumed I was trying to buy you, just like Ryan tried to do." "Don't you dare compare yourself to Ryan," Emma snapped, her voice dangerous. "Ryan never had a genuine emotion in his pathetic life. But you've been managing me from the very beginning." "I've been loving you from the beginning," David said desperately. "Emma, please." "No," Emma interrupted, her voice growing stronger with righteous fury. "You want to know what I think? I think you're used to getting whatever you want because of your money. Well, let me tell you something, David Montgomery. I'm not the same broken woman you found in that storm. I've become strong enough to walk away from anyone who lies to me." David's eyes flashed with something that looked distinctly like admiration. "You're absolutely magnificent when you're angry." "I'm magnificent always," Emma shot back without hesitation. "The question is whether you're honest enough to deserve a woman who refuses to be managed or manipulated." "I don't want to manage you," David said, stepping closer again. "I want to support you. I want to be your partner in every sense of the word. I want to watch you conquer the world and know that I helped make it possible." Emma's breath caught at the raw sincerity in his voice. "Pretty words don't erase deception." "Then let me prove it with actions," David said, his voice dropping to a whisper that somehow filled the entire room. "Let me show you that my feelings are real, regardless of how much money I have." He was right about one thing. She was tired of fighting the attraction that had been growing between them. But she was also tired of being lied to, tired of being treated like she couldn't handle the truth. "I don't need protection from the truth," she said. Her voice softer now, but no less powerful. "I need partnership. I need honesty. Can you handle loving a woman who demands complete transparency?" "I can handle loving a woman who built herself from nothing," David said, his eyes burning with intensity. "I can handle loving a woman who's stronger than any challenge life throws at her. The question is, can you handle loving a man who's been yours since the moment he realized what real strength looks like?" Emma looked at him for a long, measuring moment, seeing the truth written in every line of his face. "Prove it." David's smile was devastating and full of promise. "How?" "Be completely honest with me," Emma said. "About everything. Your wealth, your companies, your past relationships, your intentions, everything." David nodded slowly. "I'm worth 4 billion. I own controlling interests in 6 companies across 3 industries. I've never been married, never been engaged, never lived with anyone before you. I've never wanted children until I met yours. And I've never been in love until I watched you rebuild yourself into the most incredible woman I've ever known." Emma felt her resistance crumbling like sand. "Why me?" "Because you're not impressed by my money," David said simply. "Because you challenge me instead of agreeing with everything I say. Because you see through all my advantages to the man underneath who just wants to be worthy of you." Emma's hands found their way to his chest, feeling his heart racing beneath her palms. "What exactly are you asking of me?" "Everything," David said without hesitation. "Your trust, your partnership, your heart. I want to be your husband, Emma. Not because you need me, but because I need you. Because together, we're stronger than either of us could ever be alone. We're business partners raising children together," Emma protested weakly. "We're already a family," David said with conviction. "We work together, parent together, dream together. The only thing missing is admitting that we love each other." Emma looked up at him, seeing her future reflected in his eyes. "You're asking me to take a leap of faith." "I'm asking you to trust your heart," David corrected. "To stop fighting what we both know is real." Emma felt her heart hammering as she made her decision. "Then ask me properly." David's eyes widened with hope and disbelief. "Emma Cartwright, will you marry me? Will you let me love you and your children for the rest of our lives? Will you build something beautiful with me that no one can ever tear down?" Emma smiled, feeling truly powerful for the first time in her entire life. "Yes, David Montgomery. But on one absolute condition. No more secrets between us, ever, about anything." David's laugh was pure joy and relief. "I promise complete honesty from now on." "Good," Emma said, reaching up to kiss him, "because I'm falling in love with you, too, and I refuse to love a lie." Chapter 4. The Arrangement That Became Real. 8 weeks after their engagement, Emma stood in the master bedroom she now shared with David, adjusting the straps of her midnight blue evening gown. Tonight marked their debut as an engaged couple at the tech industry's most prestigious award ceremony, where they were being honored as Innovators of the Year for their groundbreaking work on the communication platform that was revolutionizing global connectivity. "Mommy, you look like a princess," 6-year-old Isabella exclaimed, twirling in her own miniature gown of pale rose silk. The Quadruplets were accompanying them tonight, and Emma's heart swelled with maternal pride at how beautiful and confident they all looked. "She looks like a queen," Theodore corrected with the seriousness that marked him as the eldest by 3 precious minutes. "Queens are stronger than princesses." "That's absolutely right, my little emperor," Emma said, kissing his forehead with infinite tenderness. "And what are you for?" "We're going to be strong like you," Sebastian and Victoria chimed in perfect unison, their faces glowing with the confidence that came from being raised to believe in their own worth. "You're going to be yourselves," Emma corrected gently. "Strong, kind, and smart in your own special ways." "We love Papa David," Victoria said seriously. "He reads us stories and makes funny voices." Emma's heart warmed at how naturally they'd embraced David as their father figure. The transition from business partner to family had been surprisingly seamless, though Emma suspected that had everything to do with David's genuine love for her children. "Speaking of Papa David," Emma said, glancing at her diamond-encrusted watch, "where is he? We're supposed to leave in exactly 10 minutes. Right here and completely speechless, David's voice came from the doorway, rich with emotion and desire. Emma turned to find him looking devastatingly handsome in his perfectly tailored black tuxedo, his dark hair styled to perfection, and his eyes burning with such appreciation it made her knees weak. "You're absolutely stunning," he said, his voice rough, with barely contained passion. "Completely. Devastatingly beautiful." Emma felt heat rise in her cheeks despite 8 weeks of living together. David's compliments still made her feel like a woman experiencing her first crush. "You look pretty amazing yourself," she replied, smoothing her hands over the silk that hugged her curves. "Papa David looks like a movie star," Isabella declared, throwing her arms around his legs with characteristic enthusiasm. "Thank you, Princess," David said, scooping her up and spinning her around until she giggled with delight. "You look like a movie star yourself." Emma watched them together, her heart clenching with an emotion she was finally ready to name as complete, overwhelming love. David had slipped into the role of father so naturally, so completely, that sometimes she forgot he wasn't their biological parent. He was patient with their tantrums, creative with their bedtime stories, and absolutely fierce in his protection of them. More importantly, he genuinely enjoyed their company, treating them like the intelligent little people they were, rather than burdens to be endured. "We should go," Emma said, gathering her purse and wrap. "The car is waiting, and we don't want to be late for our own celebration." The ride to the ceremony was filled with the children's excited chatter about the evening ahead. Emma tried to focus on their conversation, but she was hyper-aware of David's presence beside her, his hand resting casually on her knee in a gesture that was becoming natural between them. "Are you nervous?" David asked quietly, his breath warm against her ear. "Should I be?" Emma asked, her voice equally quiet. "No," David said, his hand squeezing her knee gently. "You're going to be magnificent. You always are." The ceremony was held in the grand ballroom of the city's most prestigious hotel, and Emma felt a thrill of pure satisfaction as heads turned when they entered. She was no longer the abandoned wife hiding in the shadows. She was Emma Cartwright, co-founder of one of the most successful tech companies in the country. "Emma," a familiar voice called out, and Emma's blood turned to ice water. She turned slowly to see Ryan approaching, his face carefully neutral, but his eyes burning with something that looked like desperate hunger. "Ryan," she said coolly, her voice giving away absolutely nothing. "I didn't expect to see you here," Ryan said, his eyes roaming over her appreciatively in a way that made her skin crawl. "You look incredible. Different." "I look successful," Emma corrected, her chin lifting with pride, "because that's exactly what I am." Ryan's eyes moved to David, who had positioned himself protectively at Emma's side. "And you must be the famous David Montgomery. I've heard quite a bit about you." "Have you?" David asked, his voice pleasant but his eyes cold as winter. "I can't say the same about you." "Papa David." Isabella's voice cut through the tension as she ran up to David, wrapping her arms around his legs. "The photographer wants to take our picture." Emma watched Ryan's face go pale as he realized what he just heard. "Papa?" "That's right," Theodore said, appearing at David's other side with his siblings. "David's our papa. He takes care of us." Ryan's eyes darted between the children and David, his face a mask of shock and growing understanding. "But I'm there." "You're nothing to us," Sebastian interrupted, his usually gentle nature hardened with protective instinct. "You made Mummy sad. Papa David makes her happy. Papa David reads us stories and helps with our baths." Victoria added with devastating simplicity, "Real daddies take care of their kids." The people around them had begun to notice the confrontation, conversations stopping as they sensed drama unfolding. "Emma, we need to talk," Ryan said urgently, reaching for her arm. "No, we don't," Emma said, stepping smoothly out of his reach. "We have nothing to discuss." "Please," Ryan said, his voice cracking with desperation. "He made a mistake. I know that now. I want to fix things." Emma looked at him for a long moment, seeing him clearly for exactly what he was. A weak, pathetic man who'd realized too late what he'd thrown away. "You want to fix things?" she asked quietly, her voice carrying clearly through the suddenly silent crowd. "Then disappear. Stop following my career. Stop showing up at my events. Stop trying to insert yourself into my life. But the children are my blood. Blood doesn't make a family, Emma finished firmly. Love makes a family. These children are happy, safe, and loved. They have a father who chose them. What more could anyone want? I want my family back, Ryan said desperately, his voice rising. You never had a family, Emma said, her voice steady and sure. You had people you thought you could control. But families are built on love, Ryan, and you've never understood that word. David stepped forward, his presence commanding and intimidating. I think you should leave. This is a public event, Ryan said, his voice rising with humiliation. You can't make me. Actually, I can, David said smoothly. I'm one of the sponsors of this event. Security will escort you out if I ask them to. Ryan's face flushed with rage and embarrassment. You think you've won? I know I have, Emma said, her voice filled with quiet confidence, because I learned something you never understood. Real power isn't in controlling others. It's in building something beautiful that can't be destroyed. She turned to David and the children, dismissing Ryan completely. Come on, let's go take those pictures. As they walked away, Emma heard Ryan call after them. This isn't over, Emma. Yes, it is, she said without turning around. It's been over for a long time. You just haven't accepted it yet. The rest of the evening passed in a blur of congratulations, networking, and celebration. Emma and David accepted their award together, and Emma felt a surge of pride as she looked out at the audience and saw respect and admiration in their eyes instead of pity. Later, after the children were asleep and they were alone in their bedroom, David found Emma standing on the balcony, overlooking the city lights. Regrets? He asked, sliding his arms around her waist from behind. None, Emma said, leaning back against his chest. For the first time in my life, I feel like I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be. Good, David murmured, pressing a kiss to her neck, because I have something to tell you. What? I love you, he said simply. Not as a business partner, not as a friend, not as a convenience. I love you as a woman, as a mother, as the most incredible person I've ever met. Emma turned in his arms, her heart racing. David, I know this started as a business arrangement, he continued, his eyes burning with intensity. But somewhere along the way, it became real. At least for me. Emma looked up at him, seeing her future reflected in his eyes. It became real for me, too. David's smile was devastating. Then marry me. Really. Marry me. Not for business, not for convenience, but for love. I already said yes, Emma reminded him, laughing. That was practical Emma saying yes to a smart partnership, David said, his hands framing her face. I want Emma, the woman, to say yes to David, the man who's completely, desperately in love with her. Emma's heart swelled with emotion. Yes, David Montgomery. I'll marry you for love. Chapter 5. Love's True Face Revealed. Emma stared at the business magazine article open on David's tablet, her hands trembling with a mixture of confusion and growing unease. The feature story about tech's most influential power players included a profile that made her blood run cold. David Montgomery, 35. CEO and founder of Montgomery Holdings. Estimated net worth $15, $2 billion. Ranked among the top 100 wealthiest individuals globally. You've been hiding this from me, she said quietly, not turning around as she heard his familiar footsteps in the office doorway. Her voice was deadly calm, which David had learned was far more dangerous than if she'd been screaming. Emma, I can explain. Explain what exactly? Emma spun around, her dark eyes blazing with volcanic fury. Explain why you told me you were worth $12 billion when you're actually worth over 15. Explain why you've been downplaying your wealth and influence when you're apparently one of the most powerful men in the world. David stepped into the room, his face pale, but his resolve unwavering. Because I wanted you to love me for who I am as a person, not what I have in my portfolio. Who you are. Emma's laugh was bitter and cutting. I don't even know who you are. Every conversation we've had about money has been filtered through your version of the truth. That's absolutely not true, David said desperately, moving closer despite the warning in her eyes. My feelings for you are completely real. My love for the children is completely real. The man you've been living with, building a life with, that's the real me. Is it? Emma asked, her voice dropping to a dangerous whisper. Because the real you has been managing the truth from the very beginning. The business opportunities, the investor meetings, the lucky breaks our company has had. How much of that was orchestrated by your connections? David's silence was more damning than any confession. Some of it, Emma breathed, her voice breaking with the magnitude of his deception. How much? The initial meetings were through my network, David admitted reluctantly. But everything after that, every success, every breakthrough, that was entirely your brilliance. You provided the stage, Emma said, her voice growing stronger and more powerful with each word. You made me into your star performer without telling me I was in a show. You think your billions impress me? I built myself from absolutely nothing. Your money is just numbers. My strength is immortal. David's eyes flashed with something that looked distinctly like admiration, even in the midst of their confrontation. You're absolutely right. Your strength is immortal. That's exactly why I fell in love with you. Don't, Emma warned, backing away from him with fire in her eyes. Don't you dare use love to justify your systematic deception. I'm not justifying anything, David said, his voice raw with desperate emotion. I'm explaining why I was terrified to tell you the complete truth. I've watched relationships crumble under the weight of extreme wealth. I couldn't bear the thought of you seeing dollar signs instead of me. So, you decided to manipulate the truth instead, Emma said, her voice cold as Arctic wind, to control what I knew about you, when I knew it, how much I could handle. I decided to protect what we were building, David said fiercely, his composure finally cracking. Everything I did was to give you the space to become the queen you were born to be, without the pressure of my full wealth influencing your decisions. You created an elaborate deception, Emma shot back, her voice rising with righteous fury. You turned our entire relationship into a carefully managed experience designed to make me fall for you gradually. David's face crumpled with genuine anguish. Emma, please. Please, what? Emma demanded, her voice filled with the power of a woman who'd been underestimated one too many times. Please forgive you for treating me like I couldn't handle the truth? Please pretend that everything we've built together isn't tainted by your lies? Please don't let my fear destroy what we have, David begged, his voice breaking. I love you, Emma. I love you more than every penny I've ever earned. I love your strength, your intelligence, your fierce heart. I love the way you challenge me, the way you make me want to be worthy of you. You love the version of me you've carefully cultivated, Emma said, her voice deadly quiet. The grateful woman who fell for your managed approach to courtship. That's absolutely not true, David said, desperation creeping into his voice. If I wanted to control you, would I have made you equal partner in everything? Would I have put your name on all our companies? Would I have legally adopted your children as my own? Equal? Emma's laugh was harsh and disbelieving. How can we possibly be equal when you've been controlling the information flow from the very beginning, when every decision I made was based on incomplete data you provided? Because your instincts and intelligence are what made everything successful, David said with fierce conviction. The connections opened doors, but you walked through them and conquered everything on the other side through your own brilliance. Emma stared at him, seeing the desperate truth in his eyes, even as anger continued to consume her. You should have trusted me with the complete truth. I know, David admitted quietly. I should have been completely transparent from day one, but Emma, I was absolutely terrified. I've been burned before by people who saw my wealth as an opportunity, rather than seeing me as a person. So, instead, you chose calculated deception, Emma said, her voice breaking with hurt. You chose to build our entire relationship on a foundation of managed truths. I chose to love you carefully, David said, his voice cracking with raw emotion. I chose to give you everything I am in stages, hoping that by the time you knew the full scope of my wealth, you'd already fallen for the man underneath it. Love me carefully. Emma's voice rose to a dangerous pitch. Love isn't careful, David. Love is honest. Love is trusting someone with the complete truth and believing they're strong enough to handle it. David looked at her for a long, measuring moment. And Emma saw something fundamental shift in his expression. When he spoke again, his voice was different, more vulnerable, more honest than she'd ever heard it. "You're absolutely right," he said quietly. "I was a coward. I was so afraid of losing you that I tried to control how you discovered who I really am. That wasn't fair to you. And it wasn't fair to what we were building together." Emma felt her anger wavering despite her best efforts to maintain it. "David, I'm David Montgomery, founder and CEO of Montgomery Holdings, worth approximately $15, $2 billion, and one of the most influential people in global technology," he said, his posture straightening with complete honesty. "I've never been married, never been engaged, never lived with anyone before you. I've never wanted children until I met yours. And I've never been in love until I watched you rebuild yourself into the most incredible woman I've ever known." He paused, his eyes never leaving hers. "But I'm also someone who's been completely empty for 35 years, going through the motions of success that felt meaningless until you showed me what real strength looks like." Emma stared at him, her heart racing with conflicting emotions. "You think complete honesty now erases months of managed truth?" "I think," David said, stepping closer with renewed determination, "that you're strong enough to handle anything, including my fears and mistakes. I think you deserve a partner who trusts you completely, and I want to be that man." Emma looked at him, seeing the man beneath all the wealth and fear. "I don't need your empire, David. I've built my own power. The question is, are you brave enough to love a woman who demands complete transparency?" David's eyes blazed with something that looked like hope, mixed with profound respect. "I want to be brave enough. I want to be the partner you deserve, the man our children can respect, the person worthy of your incredible heart." "Our children," Emma repeated quietly, her anger beginning to transform into something more complex. "Our children," David confirmed with absolute certainty, "Theodore, Sebastian, Isabella, and Victoria. They're mine in every way that matters, and I'm theirs. That's completely real, Emma. That's not calculated or managed. That's pure love." Emma felt tears prick her eyes as the fight slowly drained out of her. "You shattered my trust." "I know," David said, his voice infinitely gentle, "and I'll spend however long it takes earning it back if you'll give me the chance." Emma looked at him for a long moment, seeing the complete truth written in every line of his face. No more managed revelations. No more calculated disclosures. Complete transparency about everything. Complete transparency, David agreed immediately. "And no more protecting me from information you think I can't handle. No more protection from truth and absolutely no more fear-based decisions about our relationship," Emma said, her voice growing stronger with renewed power. "I'm strong enough to handle your wealth, your influence, and your fears. Trust me with all of it." "You're not just strong enough," David said, his voice rough with emotion. "You're the strongest person I've ever known, and I'm sorry it took me so long to trust you with that strength." Emma felt something inside her chest crack open with possibility. "You're an idiot." "I'm your idiot," David said hopefully. Despite everything, Emma felt her lips curve in the first genuine smile she'd managed since discovering the article. "Yes, you absolutely are." David's face lit up with cautious hope. "Does this mean you can forgive me?" "It means," Emma said, stepping closer to him with renewed purpose, "that you're going to spend a very long time proving you trust me completely." "I have the rest of my life to dedicate to that goal," David said, his arms coming around her waist. "Will that be enough time?" Emma looked up at him, seeing their future reflected in his eyes. "It's a start." Chapter 6. The Return That Shook the World. The grand ballroom of the Meridian Hotel had never hosted a more anticipated event. Emma stood at the entrance, her hand resting confidently on David's arm as camera flashes exploded around them like stars. 6 years after Ryan Fletcher had thrown her out like garbage, she was returning to high society as the queen she'd always been meant to be. Her gown was a masterpiece of midnight black silk that hugged every curve before flowing into a dramatic train that whispered power with every step. Diamonds dripped from her ears and throat, not because she needed David's wealth to feel beautiful, but because she'd earned the right to wear them. Her natural hair was styled in an elegant updo that showcased the regal line of her neck, and her makeup was flawless, highlighting the inner fire that had never dimmed. "You're magnificent," David murmured in her ear, his voice rough with pride and desire. "Every person in this room knows they're witnessing the rise of a queen. I was always a queen, Emma replied, her voice steady and sure. Some people just needed time to recognize it. The charity gala for children's cancer research was the same event where Ryan had humiliated her 6 years ago. Emma had specifically chosen it for her grand return, turning the scene of her greatest pain into the stage for her ultimate triumph. "Mommy, look at all the pretty lights," Isabella exclaimed, her small hand tucked securely in Emma's. The Quadruplets accompanied them tonight, dressed like the little royalty they were. Theodore and Sebastian in matching miniature tuxedos, Isabella and Victoria in gowns that made them look like princesses from a fairy tale. "They're beautiful, sweetheart," Emma said, her heart swelling with love and pride, "but not as beautiful as you four." "We know we're beautiful," Victoria said matter-of-factly. "Daddy David tells us every day that we're perfect, just the way we are." "That's because you are," David said, scooping up Sebastian when the little boy raised his arms, "and because beautiful people should always know their worth." Emma watched him with her children, their children, and felt that familiar flutter in her chest. Over the past month, since their confrontation about his wealth, David had proven himself worthy of her forgiveness through actions rather than words. He'd transferred full ownership of Montgomery Innovations to her, making her the sole owner of a company now worth $3 billion. He'd also established trust funds for each of the children that would make them independently wealthy when they came of age. "Mrs. Montgomery," a reporter called out, pushing through the crowd, "how does it feel to return to this event as one of the most successful entrepreneurs in the country?" "It feels like coming full circle," Emma replied smoothly, her voice carrying easily over the crowd. "6 years ago, I was a woman who believed her worth was tied to her husband's success. Tonight, I'm a woman who knows her worth comes from her own strength, intelligence, and determination. What would you say to women who might be in similar situations to where you were?" Emma's eyes blazed with passion. "I would tell them that rock bottom is an excellent foundation for rebuilding. I would tell them that no man's rejection defines their worth. And I would tell them that the phoenix rises not despite the flames, but because of them." The crowd erupted in applause, and Emma felt a surge of satisfaction. This was her moment, her triumph, her declaration to the world that Emma Cartwright had not just survived, she had conquered. "Emma," a familiar voice cut through the applause, and Emma's blood turned to ice. She turned slowly to see Ryan Fletcher approaching, his face pale and his eyes wide with shock. "Ryan," Emma said coolly, her voice giving nothing away. Around them, conversation stopped as people sensed the tension. Ryan looked older, thinner, desperate. His suit was expensive but not well fitted, and there were lines around his eyes that spoke of stress and sleepless nights. "You look incredible." "I look successful," Emma corrected, her chin lifting proudly, "because that's what I am." Ryan's eyes moved to the children, who had instinctively moved closer to David. His face crumpled with something that might have been regret. "Are these?" "These are my children," Emma said firmly. "Theodore, Sebastian, Isabella, and Victoria Montgomery." "Montgomery?" Ryan's voice cracked. "That's right," Theodore interrupted, his young voice carrying surprising authority. "You're the man who made our mommy cry, but our daddy David makes her smile." "That's right," Isabella added, moving protectively in front of her mother. "Daddy David chose us? You threw us away." Ryan's face went white. "Children, you don't understand." "We understand perfectly," Victoria said, her voice wise beyond her 6 years. "Our mommy told us about you. You're the man who wasn't strong enough to be a real father." "Emma, please," Ryan begged, ignoring the stares of the crowd around them. "We need to talk." "You made a mistake." "You made a choice," Emma interrupted, her voice cutting like a blade. "You discarded me like garbage. Now watch me reign as the queen you never deserved." David stepped forward, his presence commanding and protective. "I think you should leave." "This is between me and my wife," Ryan snarled, his desperation making him reckless. "Ex-wife," Emma corrected coldly. "And I'm not your anything. I'm Mrs. David Montgomery now. And these are our children." "Our children?" Ryan's voice rose, drawing more attention. "They're my blood." "Blood doesn't make a father," Sebastian said, his small hand slipping into David's larger one. "Love does, and you don't know how to love anyone." The crowd around them was completely silent now, watching the drama unfold. Emma felt the weight of their attention and straightened her shoulders, drawing on every ounce of strength she possessed. "You want to know the difference between you and David?" Emma asked, her voice carrying clearly through the ballroom. "You abandoned 4 babies because you were too weak to be a real man. He chose them, loves them, and would die for them. They have a father now, a man who chose them, not biology." Ryan's face twisted with rage and humiliation. "You think you've won, don't you? You think your new husband's money makes you special?" Emma's laugh was cold and beautiful. "I think I built a $3 billion company from nothing, while raising 4 children alone. I think I turned myself from a victim into a victor. I think I'm everything you said I could never be. And you're everything I always knew you were. A weak, pathetic man who destroys everything he touches." The crowd erupted in murmurs of approval and shock. Several people began applauding, and Emma felt a surge of power that had nothing to do with money or status, and everything to do with truth. "This isn't over," Ryan said desperately. "Those are my children, and I have rights." "You have no rights," David said, his voice deadly quiet. "You signed away all parental rights 6 years ago, when you demanded the divorce. These children are legally mine." Ryan staggered backward as if he'd been struck. "That's impossible. Check the papers." Emma said coolly, "When you demanded I sign the divorce agreement, you included a clause relinquishing all claims to any children from our marriage. You were so eager to be rid of us that you didn't read the fine print." Ryan staggered backward as if she'd physically struck him. "You tricked me." "I protected my children," Emma corrected, "from a man who would have used them as pawns in his games, the same way I'm protecting them now." She turned to the crowd, her voice rising with passion and power. "Let this be a lesson to anyone who thinks they can break a woman's spirit. We are not breakable. We are not disposable. We are not defined by the men who fail to see our worth. We are queens, and queens don't beg for their crowns. They take them." The applause was thunderous. People rose to their feet, their faces shining with admiration and respect. Emma felt tears prick her eyes as she realized that this moment, this public claiming of her power, was what she'd been building toward for 6 years. Ryan looked around at the hostile faces surrounding him, his own face crumpling with defeat. "Emma, please." "Goodbye, Ryan," Emma said firmly. "Don't contact me. Don't contact my children. And don't ever think you can insert yourself into our lives again. We've moved on, and you should, too." Security appeared as if summoned, surrounding Ryan with polite but firm efficiency. As he was escorted away, Emma heard him call out one last desperate plea: "They'll always be my blood." "Blood doesn't make a family," Emma called back, her voice carrying clearly through the ballroom. "Love does, and you never learned the difference." As Ryan disappeared through the doors, Emma turned back to her family. David was looking at her with such pride and love that it took her breath away, and the children were beaming as if they just watched their mother slay a dragon. "Did we do good, Mommy?" Isabella asked, slipping her hand into Emma's. "You did perfectly, my darling," Emma said, her voice thick with emotion. "You all did perfectly." "Can we go get cake now?" Theodore asked practically. "All that talking made me hungry." Emma laughed, the sound bright and joyful. "Yes, my little emperor. Let's go get cake." As they walked deeper into the ballroom, Emma heard the whispers following them, whispers of admiration, respect, and awe. She'd done more than return to society. She'd conquered it. "I love you," David murmured in her ear as they reached their table. "I love you too," Emma replied, and meant it with every fiber of her being. The girl who'd been thrown away was gone. In her place stood a woman who knew her worth and would never let anyone diminish it again. Chapter 7. Games of Power and Passion. Emma stood in her glass-walled corner office, overlooking the glittering city skyline, reading the intelligence report that had just landed on her mahogany desk. Ryan Fletcher was planning something desperately foolish, attempting to organize a coalition of competitors against Montgomery Holdings, hoping to damage their market position enough to force a negotiation where he could demand access to his children. "The man's delusion knew no bounds," Emma murmured, her lips curving in a predatory smile that would have terrified lesser opponents. Over the past 6 months, she'd built an impressive network of business contacts and information sources throughout their industry, and very little happened without her knowledge. "He's getting increasingly desperate," David said from the doorway, his voice carrying that note of controlled fury that appeared whenever Ryan's name was mentioned. My security team intercepted communications between him and several smaller competitors. "He's trying to convince them that taking us down would benefit everyone." Emma turned to face her husband, taking in the magnificent sight of him in his perfectly tailored charcoal suit. Even after a year of marriage, he still took her breath away, the way he moved with controlled power, the way his dark eyes burned when he looked at her, the way his presence commanded every room he entered. "Let him try," Emma said, her voice steady and confident as granite. "What's that saying about bringing a water gun to a real fight?" David's eyes gleamed with admiration and desire. "You have a plan." "I always have a plan," Emma replied, moving closer to him with feline grace. "But this particular one is especially satisfying." She gestured to the wall-mounted screen, which displayed a complex web of business relationships and financial connections that looked like a master strategist's war room. "Ryan thinks he's playing corporate warfare, but he doesn't realize we've been playing a completely different game for months." "Which is?" "Strategic positioning," Emma said, her voice ringing with unshakable confidence. "While he's been focused obsessively on trying to hurt us, we've been quietly building relationships with every company he needs for his coalition. They're more interested in partnering with us than fighting us." David's smile was slow and devastating. "You magnificent, brilliant woman. How long have you been orchestrating this?" "Since the Tech Awards ceremony," Emma admitted without shame. "The moment I saw the desperation in his eyes, I knew he'd try something monumentally stupid. I've been preparing for his inevitable move ever since. And I've been falling more in love with you every single day," David said, his voice rough with emotion. "The way your strategic mind works, the way you see possibilities, while others see problems, it's absolutely incredible." Emma felt heat bloom in her chest at his words. "You want to know what I find incredible?" "What?" "The way you trust me to handle this completely," Emma said, stepping closer until she could feel the warmth radiating from his powerful body. "Most men would want to take control, to protect their egos by being the dominant player. But you see me as your equal." "I see you as my superior in strategy," David corrected, his hands coming up to frame her face with reverent tenderness. "You're a natural-born strategist, Emma. I'm just fortunate enough to be your partner." Emma's breath caught at the intensity in his voice. "Don't underestimate yourself, David Montgomery. You built an empire before you met me." "I built companies," David corrected, his thumbs tracing her cheekbones. "You taught me how to build something that matters." Before Emma could respond, her assistant's voice came through the intercom with urgent efficiency. "Mrs. Montgomery, Mr. Fletcher is here to see you. He says it's urgent, and he won't leave until you see him." Emma and David exchanged glances, and Emma saw her own predatory satisfaction reflected perfectly in his dark eyes. "Send him in," Emma said, her voice perfectly composed despite the anticipation coursing through her veins. "And cancel my afternoon appointments. This conversation might take longer than expected." "Are you certain you want me here for this?" David asked quietly. "I wouldn't dream of facing my opponent without my partner beside me," Emma replied, her smile sharp as a blade and twice as dangerous. Ryan entered the office looking haggard and desperate, like a man who hadn't slept properly in weeks. His expensive suit couldn't hide the fact that he'd lost significant weight, and there were dark circles under his eyes that spoke of mounting pressure and failing strategies. "Emma," he began, his voice carefully modulated to sound reasonable. "Thank you for agreeing to see me." "Ryan," Emma replied coolly, deliberately not inviting him to sit. "I hear you've been extraordinarily busy lately." Ryan's eyes darted nervously between Emma and David like a cornered animal. "I don't know what you mean." "Don't you?" Emma asked, her voice deceptively gentle. "Late-night meetings with Harrison Tech, lunch negotiations with Digital Dynamics, desperate attempts to organize opposition against my husband's companies. Ring any bells?" Ryan's face went pale as fresh snow. "How did you possibly—" "No," Emma interrupted smoothly, "because I'm not the naive woman you remember, Ryan. I'm the CEO of a billion-dollar company, and I didn't get here by being uninformed or careless. She moved to her desk and pulled out a folder with theatrical precision. "Would you like to see the reports, the meeting summaries, the financial records, showing how much each company laughed at your proposals?" Ryan staggered backward as if she'd physically struck him. "You've been monitoring me." "I've been protecting my family and my business," Emma corrected with ice-cold precision, from a man who refuses to accept that his relevance expired long ago. "I'm not trying to hurt your business," Ryan said desperately, his voice cracking. "I just want access to my children. They're my flesh and blood, Emma. You can't keep them from me forever." Emma's laugh was cold and beautiful, like winter moonlight. "Watch me." She pressed a button on her desk, and the wall screen lit up with legal documents, adoption papers, signed and legally filed 10 months ago. David is their legal father in every sense. "You have no rights, no claims, no standing whatsoever." Ryan's face crumpled like a house of cards. "You can't do this to me." "I can do whatever I want," Emma said, her voice growing stronger and more commanding, "because I learned something you never understood. Real power isn't in destroying others. It's in building something so strong that your enemies exhaust themselves trying to damage it." "What do you want from me?" Ryan asked, his voice breaking completely. Emma smiled, and it was the smile of a strategist who had just executed a perfect plan. "I want you to understand the position you're in, Ryan. You see, while you've been wasting time on your pathetic coalition attempt, I've been having very different conversations with those same companies." Ryan's eyes widened with growing horror. "What kind of conversations?" "Partnership discussions," Emma said with devastating precision. "Joint ventures, technology sharing agreements, strategic alliances. Harrison Tech is about to announce a major collaboration with us. Digital Dynamics just signed an exclusive licensing deal for our platform." "That's impossible," Ryan whispered. But his voice held no conviction. David stepped forward, his presence looming and intimidating. "Your potential allies became our confirmed partners. They saw much more value in working with us than in your scheme to damage us." Ryan's legs gave out completely, and he collapsed into the chair behind him like a marionette with cut strings. "Why? Why would you do this to me?" "Because you threatened my family," Emma said, her voice deadly quiet. "Because you tried to play games with a woman who writes the playbook. Because you forgot that I'm not just surviving anymore. I'm absolutely dominating." She leaned against her desk, her posture relaxed but her eyes blazing with power. "Here's exactly what's going to happen, Ryan. You're going to stop this corporate sabotage nonsense immediately. You're going to cease all attempts to interfere with our business or our family, and you're going to disappear from our lives permanently." "And if I refuse," Ryan asked weakly, "then I'll make sure every company in this industry knows exactly what kind of business partner you really are," Emma said simply. "I'll share the evidence of your attempts at corporate sabotage, your financial instability, your history of unethical practices. You'll never work in this industry again." Ryan stared at her, finally seeing the truth written clearly in her eyes. "You've become ruthless. I've become powerful." Emma corrected with quiet dignity. "There's a crucial difference. Ruthless people destroy for pleasure. Powerful people protect what they love." "I loved you once," Ryan said pathetically, grasping at straws. "No," Emma said firmly, her voice ringing with truth. "You loved the idea of controlling me. You loved having someone you thought you could manipulate. But you never loved me, Ryan. If you had, you would have been there when I needed you most." David moved to stand beside Emma, his hand resting protectively on her waist. "She's given you clear terms, Ryan. I strongly suggest you accept them." Ryan looked between them, seeing the united front they presented, the love and respect that flowed between them like electricity. "You really love him, don't you?" "With everything I am," Emma said without hesitation. "David saw my worth when I couldn't see it myself. He built me up instead of tearing me down. He chose my children when their biological father abandoned them. They could have been mine," Ryan said brokenly. "They never were yours," Emma replied with finality. "From the moment you demanded I abort them, you lost any claim to call yourself their father. David earned that title through love, patience, and unwavering devotion." Ryan sat in defeated silence for a long moment, then slowly pulled out his phone with shaking hands. "I'll call off the meetings." "Smart choice," Emma said with satisfaction. "And Ryan, If you ever try to interfere with my family or my business again, I'll make your professional destruction so complete that people will forget you ever existed." Ryan stood on unsteady legs, his face aged a decade in the span of an hour. "You've won, Emma. Completely." "I didn't win, Ryan," Emma said, her voice soft but implacable. "I simply became the woman. I was always meant to be the woman you were too weak and too blind to appreciate." As Ryan left with his tail between his legs, Emma turned to David, who was looking at her with such pride and desire that it took her breath away. "Remind me never to get on your bad side," David said, his voice rough with admiration. "You couldn't if you tried," Emma replied, moving into his arms. "You're stuck with me, David Montgomery. For better or for brilliant?" "Definitely for brilliant," David murmured, capturing her lips in a kiss that tasted of victory and infinite promise. As they kissed, Emma felt the last pieces of her old life falling away like autumn leaves. She was no longer the woman who had been thrown away like garbage. She was Emma Cartwright Montgomery, master strategist and queen of her own empire, and no one would ever underestimate her again. Chapter 8. The Trap Springs Closed. 18 months later, Emma sat in her expanded corner office, watching the morning news with deep satisfaction. The anchor's solemn voice filled the room. In a stunning development, Ryan Fletcher, former CEO of Fletcher Industries, has been arrested by federal agents on charges of embezzlement, fraud, and tax evasion. The investigation, which began nearly 2 years ago, has uncovered a pattern of financial crimes spanning multiple years. Emma smiled as she muted the television. The federal investigation that had been quietly building its case had finally reached its conclusion. She'd known about the inquiry for over a year, not because she'd initiated it, but because her business intelligence network had informed her that Ryan's past was finally catching up with him. "Poetic justice," David said from the doorway, carrying 2 cups of coffee. "The man who tried to destroy you is being destroyed by his own crimes." "I didn't destroy him," Emma replied, accepting her coffee with a grateful smile. "I simply built something beautiful while he was destroying himself with his own corruption." In the year and a half since Ryan's failed coalition attempt, Phoenix Industries had flourished beyond their wildest dreams. Emma had transformed the company from a startup into a major player in the tech industry, while Ryan's own company had struggled with leadership changes and declining profits. "The board meeting is in an hour," David reminded her. "Are you ready to make the announcement?" Emma nodded, her hand moving instinctively to the slight curve of her belly where their second child was growing. At 4 months pregnant, she was finally ready to share the news publicly. Phoenix Industries is about to become a family business in every sense of the word. Her phone buzzed with a call from her publicist. "Mrs. Montgomery, the press conference is set for this afternoon. The media is very interested in your statement about the Fletcher arrest." "Perfect," Emma said. "Make sure you emphasize that this is about justice being served, not personal vendetta." 2 hours later, Emma stood behind the podium in the Phoenix Industries conference room, facing a crowd of reporters and cameras. David stood nearby, his presence steady and supportive, while their legal team flanked the other side. "Ladies and gentlemen," Emma began, her voice carrying clearly through the room, "I'm here today to address the arrest of Ryan Fletcher and to make an important announcement about Phoenix Industries' future." Hands shot up immediately, reporters eager for her reaction to her ex-husband's downfall. "Mrs. Montgomery, how do you feel about your ex-husband's arrest? Is it true that you provided information to federal investigators? Will this affect your business operations?" Emma raised her hand for silence, and the room quieted immediately. "I'll address your questions. But let me be clear about something first. Ryan Fletcher's legal troubles are the result of his own choices and actions. Phoenix Industries had no involvement in the federal investigation that led to today's charges." She paused, letting her words sink in. "However, I will say this. Justice has a way of finding those who believe they're above the law. Mr. Fletcher's arrest is the natural consequence of years of unethical business practices that finally caught up with him." "Mrs. Montgomery," a reporter from the Financial Times called out, "some people see this as the culmination of a personal vendetta. How do you respond?" Emma's eyes blazed with inner fire that could have melted steel. "I respond with facts. 2 years ago, I was a homeless single mother with 4 newborn babies. Today, I'm the CEO of a billion-dollar company that employs over 2,000 people and serves millions of customers worldwide. I didn't achieve that by focusing on revenge. I achieved it by focusing on building something meaningful. She gestured to the Phoenix Industries logo behind her. This company represents the power of resilience, the triumph of innovation over destruction, and the beautiful truth that sometimes our greatest challenges become our greatest strengths. Mrs. Montgomery, another reporter called out, "What's next for Phoenix Industries?" "Growth and expansion," Emma replied without hesitation. "We're announcing 3 new product lines, partnerships with major international firms, and something else that's very special to me personally." She paused, her hand moving to her belly with a radiant smile. "My husband and I are expecting our second child. Phoenix Industries is truly becoming a family business, built on the values of love, integrity, and the belief that everyone deserves the chance to rise from whatever challenges they face." The room erupted in congratulations and excited chatter. Emma felt tears of joy prick her eyes as she realized how far she'd come from that desperate woman in the rain. Mrs. Montgomery, a young reporter near the back, raised her hand. "What would you say to women who might be facing situations similar to what you experienced?" Emma's expression grew thoughtful and compassionate. "I would tell them that they are stronger than they know, that they can build empires from ashes, create families from love instead of obligation, and turn their greatest pain into their most powerful motivation." She looked directly into the cameras, knowing her words would reach women everywhere. "I would tell them that no one else's opinion of their worth matters, that they have the power to write their own story, and that story can be absolutely magnificent." The applause was sustained and heartfelt. Emma felt the weight of responsibility and opportunity. She wasn't just building a business anymore, she was becoming a symbol of what was possible. "One final question," she said as the applause died down. A veteran reporter from the Wall Street Journal stood up. "Mrs. Montgomery, Ryan Fletcher spent 15 years building his company, and now his reputation is in ruins. Do you feel any sympathy for him?" Emma considered the question carefully. "I feel sympathy for anyone who makes choices that ultimately destroy what they've built. But I also believe in accountability. Mr. Fletcher's current situation is the direct result of his own actions that hurt many people, including his own employees and shareholders." She straightened to her full height, her posture regal and commanding. "What I don't feel is responsibility for his choices or guilt about my success. I built Phoenix Industries through hard work, innovation, and ethical business practices. That Ryan Fletcher chose a different path is not my burden to bear." As Emma left the podium, she felt David's hand slip into hers. The cameras continued flashing, but all she could think about was how far they'd all come. "How do you feel?" David murmured in her ear as they walked toward their car. "Grateful," Emma replied, her voice steady and sure. "Grateful for the journey, grateful for our family, grateful for the opportunity to build something meaningful." "And Ryan?" Emma glanced back at the building that housed the company she'd built from nothing. "Ryan Fletcher is a cautionary tale about what happens when someone chooses corruption over character. His story is ending while ours is just beginning." David stopped walking and turned to face her, his eyes blazing with love and admiration. "I love you more every day." Emma smiled, feeling the baby move gently between them. "I love you too, and I love the life we're building together." "Speaking of building," David said, his voice taking on an excited tone, "I have a surprise for you." "What kind of surprise?" "The kind that involves a private island, a renewal of vows, and showing the world what real love looks like," David said, his smile infectious. Emma's heart swelled with anticipation and joy. "Tell me everything." "Later," David promised, pressing a kiss to her forehead. "First, let's go pick up our children and celebrate this victory as a family." As they drove toward home, Emma reflected on the strange turns her life had taken. Ryan's arrest felt like the closing of a chapter she'd already moved beyond. She'd built something beautiful while he'd been destroying himself, and that felt like the most perfect justice of all. The woman who'd been thrown away like garbage had become a queen, and her reign was just beginning. Chapter 9. Sweet Revenge and Sweeter Love. 6 months after Ryan's arrest, and 3 months after his sentencing to 15 years in federal prison, Emma stood on the terrace of their penthouse, overlooking the city that had once rejected her. Her hand rested protectively over the prominent curve of her 7-month pregnancy, where their daughter grew strong and healthy, a living symbol of the beautiful future she and David were building together. The morning news played softly through the outdoor speakers, and Emma smiled with quiet satisfaction as she heard the business report. Phoenix Industries stock reached an all-time high yesterday, cementing Emma Cartwright Montgomery's position as one of the youngest self-made billionaires in the country. The company's innovative platform has revolutionized global communications. "Good morning, my magnificent queen." David's voice came from behind her, warm and rich with love. His arms circled her carefully, his hands covering hers over their growing daughter. "Good morning, my devoted king," Emma replied, leaning back against his chest with complete trust. "Did you see the Forbes notification about you making the cover of their Power Women issue?" "Yes, and I couldn't be more proud," David said, his voice thick with emotion. "From homeless mother to Forbes cover in less than 3 years. You're absolutely incredible." Emma felt a deep sense of accomplishment settling over her like sunshine. "Do you know what the most beautiful part is? Tell me." "I don't think about Ryan anymore," Emma said, turning in his arms to face him. "When his name comes up in the news, I feel nothing, no anger, no satisfaction, just complete indifference. He's become irrelevant to our story." David's eyes searched her face, finding nothing but peace and contentment written in every line. "You've truly moved beyond all of that." "We've moved beyond it," Emma corrected, reaching up to cup his face with infinite tenderness, all of us together. "The children barely remember him now. And when they do, it's not with pain. It's with the simple understanding that some people make bad choices." "Speaking of our incredible family," David said, his eyes twinkling with excitement, "I have something wonderful to show you." He pulled out the latest issue of Forbes, and Emma's breath caught in her throat. Her picture graced the cover in stunning detail, confident, powerful, radiant in her pregnancy. The headline read, "Emma Cartwright Montgomery, the Phoenix Queen who built an empire from nothing." Emma stared at the cover, feeling overwhelmed by how far she'd traveled. "This feels surreal." "Very real and completely deserved," David said, his voice full of love. "You're officially on the Forbes billionaire list. Phoenix Industries is now worth more than Ryan's original company ever was, and you did it all through innovation and ethical business practices. But more importantly," he continued, opening to the feature article, "listen to what they wrote about the woman I love." He began reading in his rich, melodious voice. "Emma Cartwright Montgomery represents more than just extraordinary business success. She represents the indomitable power of the human spirit, the triumph of integrity over adversity, and the beautiful truth that sometimes our greatest defeats become the foundation for our most magnificent victories." Emma felt tears prick her eyes with overwhelming emotion. "There's more," David said softly, his voice full of love. "Emma Cartwright Montgomery has become a global symbol of hope for women everywhere, proving definitively that no one else's opinion can define your worth. And that true queens aren't born into royalty. They're forged in the fires of their greatest challenges and choose to rise." "Papa David, Mommy." Isabella's voice called from inside the penthouse, bright with excitement. "Come quick, there's something amazing on television." Emma and David rushed inside to find all 4 children gathered around the television, their faces glowing with pride and excitement. The children had grown so much in the past 2 years. Now 8 years old, they were confident, articulate, and absolutely secure in their family's love. "Look, Mommy." Theodore pointed at the screen with enthusiasm. "You're on the morning show again." The reporter was standing outside the gleaming headquarters of Phoenix Industries, speaking with obvious admiration. Today marks another historic milestone for Phoenix Industries. As CEO, Emma Cartwright Montgomery announces the company's expansion into 3 new markets, creating over 5,000 new jobs and cementing her position as one of the most influential leaders in technology. The screen switched to footage of Emma from a press conference the previous week. "I'm not just building a company." Her voice carried through the speakers, strong and unwavering. "I'm building a legacy of possibility. I want every person who's ever been told they're not enough to know that they have unlimited potential." "We know that, Mommy," Victoria said seriously, climbing into Emma's lap carefully to avoid her pregnant belly. You tell us every day that we can do anything. Because you absolutely can, Emma said, gathering her daughter close with infinite love. You all can achieve anything you set your minds to. Sebastian looked up at David with thoughtful eyes. Papa, are you proud of Mommy? Every single day of my life, David replied without hesitation, his voice rough with emotion. Your mother is the strongest, smartest, most incredible woman who has ever lived. We know, Theodore said matter-of-factly, with a child's simple wisdom. That's why we're going to be successful like her when we grow up. You're going to be yourselves, Emma corrected gently but firmly. Strong, kind, intelligent, and successful in your own unique and special ways. The news report continued, showing footage of Phoenix Industries' charitable initiatives. Scholarship programs for underprivileged children, comprehensive support systems for single mothers, and substantial funding for women's entrepreneurship programs worldwide. Mrs. Cartwright Montgomery has revolutionized not just the technology industry, but the very concept of using success to lift others. The reporter continued with obvious respect. Her company's motto, Rise Together, has become a rallying cry for businesses everywhere seeking to make a positive impact. Mommy, Isabella asked, settling comfortably in Emma's arms, why do they always talk about you on television? Because Mommy is changing the world for the better, sweetheart. David answered with a smile. She's making it more fair and beautiful for everyone, especially women and children. Emma felt overwhelmed by the magnitude of what they'd accomplished together. From a homeless woman with 4 babies to a billionaire CEO changing the world, the transformation still amazed her. I have an announcement to make, David said suddenly, his voice taking on an excited tone that made everyone look at him with curiosity. He moved to the center of the room, his eyes never leaving Emma's face. 2 years ago, I asked your mother to marry me in a simple ceremony. Now I want to renew our vows in a way that shows the world what real love looks like. The children squealed with excitement, bouncing with anticipation. Well, David continued, his smile growing broader with each word, I've been planning something extraordinary, something worthy of the queen you've become. He pulled out his tablet and showed Emma images that took her breath away. A private resort on a stunning Caribbean island, with accommodations that looked like they belonged in paradise itself. I bought us our own island, David said simply, as if purchasing islands was perfectly normal, our own private paradise where we can renew our vows with just our family and closest friends. No press, no business obligations, no outside interference, just us celebrating the love that conquered everything. Emma stared at the breathtaking pictures, hardly able to process what she was seeing. The resort was beautiful beyond words, with crystal-clear turquoise waters, pristine white sand beaches, and luxury that looked heavenly. David, she whispered, her voice thick with overwhelming emotion, it's absolutely incredible. It's ours forever, David said, moving to kneel beside her chair. All of it. A place where our children can grow up knowing they're loved unconditionally, where we can build memories that will last for generations. When do we go? Emma asked, her heart pounding with excitement. Next month, David replied with obvious satisfaction. Everyone we love will be there. Your parents, my family, our closest friends all, the people who supported us through everything. Can we swim in the ocean every day? Sebastian asked with excitement. Can we build enormous sandcastles? Victoria added eagerly. Can we have bonfires on the beach? Theodore chimed in enthusiastically. Can we watch the sunrise together as a family? Isabella finished hopefully. Yes, to absolutely everything, David laughed, gathering all 4 children into his strong arms. We can do anything and everything we want. It's our island, our paradise, our family sanctuary. Emma felt tears streaming down her face as she watched her beautiful family, this perfect, loving family that had risen from the ashes of her worst nightmare. Later that evening, after the children were asleep and they were alone together on their terrace under the glittering stars, Emma and David planned their magnificent future. Do you ever think about Ryan? David asked quietly, his hand resting gently on her pregnant belly. Sometimes, Emma admitted honestly, but not with anger or pain or even satisfaction. I think about how his cruelty led me directly to you, to this life, to this family. In a strange way, I'm grateful for the journey. Grateful? He broke me completely. Emma said thoughtfully, feeling their daughter move gently beneath David's touch. But like a bone that heals, I came back infinitely stronger at all the broken places. If he hadn't abandoned me, I never would have discovered how truly powerful I am. David's hand pressed gently against her belly. As their daughter kicked, his loss became the world's gain. No, Emma corrected gently, her voice soft but absolutely sure. His loss was his own punishment. I didn't destroy Ryan, David. I simply became everything he said I could never be. And he destroyed himself with his own choices. She looked out at the city lights twinkling below them, thinking about the empire they'd built, the family they'd created, the love that had conquered every obstacle imaginable. I used to think justice meant making someone pay for hurting you, she continued with quiet wisdom. But I learned that the best justice isn't destroying the person who hurt you. It's building a life so beautiful, so meaningful, so full of love that they become irrelevant to your story. David pressed a tender kiss to her temple. And what a beautiful story it is. The most beautiful, Emma agreed, her hand joining his on their growing daughter. And we're just getting started. Chapter 10. Forever Crowned in Love. The private island of Paradise Cove had been transformed into a wedding venue that surpassed even the most extravagant dreams. White silk cascaded from every palm tree like heavenly waterfalls, while thousands of white roses and orchids created a fragrant pathway to the altar, positioned perfectly at the water's edge. Emma stood in the luxurious bridal suite of their private resort, gazing at her reflection in the floor-length mirror, marveling at the radiant woman staring back at her. At 8 months pregnant, she was luminous in a way that took her breath away. Her maternity wedding gown was an absolute masterpiece of ivory silk and French lace, designed exclusively for her by the world's most celebrated couturier. The dress embraced her curves and pregnancy with perfection, the flowing design creating an image of maternal majesty. Her natural hair was styled in elegant waves, adorned with a crown of diamonds that caught the Caribbean sunlight like captured starlight. "Mommy, you look like a real goddess," 8-year-old Isabella exclaimed, twirling in her own gown of pale pink silk and pearls. All 4 children were serving as the wedding party, more mature now at 8 years old, but still bubbling with excitement. "She doesn't just look like a goddess," Victoria corrected with her characteristic wisdom, now more articulate and thoughtful. "She is a goddess. Goddesses create their own destinies and change the world." "That's absolutely right, my little empress," Emma said, gathering her daughters into a gentle embrace. "And what are you 4 destined to become?" "Future leaders who help people," Theodore declared with the confidence of a child who'd been raised to believe in his unlimited potential. "We're going to build companies that make the world better," Sebastian added, his gentle nature shining through his growing maturity. Emma felt overwhelming tears of joy prick her eyes as she looked at her children, confident, compassionate, absolutely secure in the knowledge that they were cherished and capable of anything. The contrast to where they'd started 4 years ago was almost incomprehensible. Mrs. Montgomery, her personal assistant, appeared in the doorway with reverent respect. "It's time for your grand entrance." Emma took a deep breath, feeling their daughter move actively beneath her heart. "I'm ready to celebrate our love." The walk down the petal-strewn aisle felt like floating through a dream made manifest. The intimate gathering of 50 guests, their closest family and friends from around the world, rose to their feet as she appeared. But Emma only had eyes for David, who stood waiting for her at the altar, with tears of pure love streaming down his handsome face. He looked absolutely magnificent in his white tuxedo, his dark hair perfectly styled, and his eyes burning with such adoration that Emma felt her knees go weak with emotion. Beside him stood their children, beaming with pride at being part of their parents' special day. "Dearly beloved," the minister began as Emma reached David's side, "we are gathered here today in this island paradise to witness the renewal of vows between Emma Cartwright Montgomery and David Montgomery. A love story that proves miracles happen when 2 hearts choose each other completely." David took Emma's hands, his voice rough with overwhelming emotion as he began his vows. "Emma, 4 years ago, I found you in your darkest moment and fell completely in love with your unbreakable spirit. Today, I stand before you in awe of the queen you've become, but more than that, honored beyond words to be the man you've chosen to build a legacy with." Emma's breath caught at the raw intensity in his voice, feeling the love radiating from him like warmth from the sun. You taught me that love isn't about possession or rescue. It's about partnership and mutual empowerment," David continued, his voice growing stronger. "You showed me that real strength isn't in controlling others, but in building something beautiful together that lifts everyone around us. You gave me a family, a purpose, and a love so deep and pure that I know I'll never stop trying to be worthy of it." He paused, his thumbs tracing circles on her hands with infinite tenderness. "I promise to love you not just as my wife, but as my equal, my partner, and my queen. I promise to support your dreams, celebrate your victories, and stand beside you through every challenge life brings. And I promise to love our children, all 5 of them, with the fierce devotion of a father who was chosen by love, not biology." Emma felt tears streaming down her face as she began her own vows, her voice ringing clear and strong across the paradise they'd created. "David, when you found me in that storm 4 years ago, I thought you were offering me charity. But you were offering me something far more precious. Partnership." The audience was completely silent, hanging on every word like precious treasure. "You didn't try to fix me or change me or make me smaller to fit into your world," Emma continued, her voice growing more powerful with each word. "You saw a broken woman and said, 'Let me help you discover how strong you really are.' You didn't rescue me. You helped me rescue myself and discover that I was a queen all along." She looked out at their guests, seeing faces that reflected love, admiration, and hope for the future. "David taught me that real love doesn't diminish your power. It multiplies it exponentially. He didn't save me from my circumstances. He helped me become strong enough to transform them into something beautiful." Turning back to David, Emma's voice filled with passionate conviction. "I promise to love you not because I need you, but because I choose you every single day. I promise to be your partner in building something meaningful and lasting, your equal in every endeavor, and your queen in the empire we're creating together for our children and the world." She gestured to their children, who were watching with rapt attention and glowing faces. "I promise to raise our children to know their infinite worth, to understand their power to make a difference, and to never settle for less than they deserve. And I promise to show the world what real love looks like. Love that conquers fear, love that builds rather than destroys, love that creates rather than consumes." "The rings," the minister requested with a smile, and Theodore stepped forward with a velvet pillow, holding 2 platinum bands embedded with diamonds that caught the sunlight like captured fire. As they exchanged rings with hands that trembled with emotion, David leaned close and whispered, "Forever and always, my magnificent queen." "Forever and always, my devoted king," Emma whispered back, her heart overflowing with love. "By the power vested in me," the minister announced with joy, "I now pronounce you husband and wife, renewed in love, strengthened by every trial, and united in purpose for all eternity. You may kiss your bride." David's kiss was tender and passionate, full of promises and devotion that would last lifetimes. The crowd erupted in thunderous cheers and applause, but Emma was lost in the moment, in the man who'd seen her worth when she couldn't see it herself. As they broke apart, their children rushed forward to embrace them both, their laughter bright and joyful in the Caribbean paradise they now called home. "Ladies and gentlemen," the minister called out over the celebration, "I present to you Mr. and Mrs. David and Emma Montgomery, a love story that proves dreams come true when you refuse to give up on yourself." The reception was absolutely magical, with dancing under billions of stars and toasts that brought tears to everyone's eyes. Emma's father spoke about watching his daughter transform from a broken woman into the most powerful force for good he'd ever known. David's mother welcomed Emma into the family with words that made everyone weep with joy. Even the children gave beautiful speeches about how grateful they were to have the best family in the universe. But the most powerful moment came when Emma stood to address their guests, her hand resting protectively over her daughter, who was due to arrive in just 1 month. "4 years ago," she began, her voice carrying clearly over the gentle ocean breeze, "I was a woman who believed her worth was determined by someone else's opinion of her. I was abandoned, pregnant, and convinced that my life was completely over." She looked at David, who was watching her with such pride and love that it took her breath away completely. "But I learned something in those dark days that I want to share with everyone here tonight, and with anyone who might hear this story," Emma continued, her voice growing stronger and more inspiring. You are not broken. You are not disposable. You are not defined by anyone else's failure to recognize your magnificence. The crowd was completely silent, hanging on every powerful word. To every woman who's been told she's not enough, Emma declared, her voice ringing with unshakable conviction, you are a queen waiting to claim her rightful crown. To every person who's been discarded or betrayed, you are a phoenix waiting to rise from the ashes, stronger than ever before. To everyone who's been told to make themselves smaller, you are an empire waiting to be built with your own brilliant hands. The applause was absolutely thunderous, with many guests rising to their feet in overwhelming emotion. I learned that true victory isn't destroying the person who hurt you, Emma continued, her voice soft but carrying infinite power. It's building a life so beautiful, so meaningful, so full of love and purpose, that they become irrelevant to your story while you become everything you were meant to be. She looked down at their children, who were watching her with shining eyes full of pride and understanding. And most importantly, I learned that families aren't built on obligation. They're built on choice, love, and unwavering commitment. These 5 incredible children have a father who chose them with his heart, and that's what makes us a real family. As the evening wound down to perfection, Emma and David found themselves alone on the moonlit beach, walking hand in hand as gentle waves lapped at their feet. The moon was full overhead, casting a silver path across the water like a highway to heaven. Any regrets about anything? David asked, echoing the question he'd asked her so many times before. Only one, Emma said, her free hand resting on her pregnant belly. What could you possibly regret? Emma stopped walking and turned to face him, her eyes sparkling with mischief and pure contentment. I regret that it took me so long to realize that the best revenge isn't proving someone wrong about you. It's proving yourself right about who you can become. David laughed, the sound rich and joyful, echoing across the paradise they'd created. You're absolutely magnificent when you're philosophical. I'm magnificent always, Emma corrected with a radiant smile, but I'm done wasting energy on anything but our beautiful future. She looked out at the endless ocean, then back at the resort where their children were sleeping peacefully, surrounded by love and infinite possibility. This is what complete victory looks like, David. Not destruction or revenge, but creation of something so beautiful it takes your breath away. We built a dynasty that will change the world, David agreed, his arms coming around her as their daughter moved gently between them. Emma leaned back against his chest, her hands covering his as they rested on her belly. What do you think she'll be like? Loved and confident, David said immediately, strong like her mother, kind like her siblings, and absolutely certain of her worth. She'll be perfect, Emma said softly. Just like this moment, just like this life we've built together. As they stood there under the blanket of stars, Emma thought about the incredible journey that had brought them to this moment of perfect happiness. From the homeless woman with 4 babies to the billionaire CEO with a loving family and another child on the way, the transformation proved that the human spirit could overcome absolutely anything. Emma Cartwright Montgomery had risen from the ashes to become the queen she was always destined to be. Her reign would be legendary, built not on vengeance, but on love, not on destruction, but on creation, not on proving others wrong, but on proving herself magnificently right. The girl who'd been thrown away was gone forever, replaced by a woman who knew her worth and would spend her life helping others discover theirs. 2. This was just the beginning of her legacy.